Hello, everybody. So, this is going to be a really cool episode for Founders Code podcast because with us we have a guy who's literally aiming for space, the final frontier. Phil, welcome to the podcast, Phil.
Thanks so much for having me, Shamil. Excited to be here.
Let us get a good grasp on you as a person. Did you grow up in the UK?
Yes, I was born in the UK and then I moved to South Africa until I was about 5. And then my dad was a diplomat there, so we were with my family there. And then we moved back to the UK and where I stayed until I was 21 and then moved to the US for grad school. And then since then I've basically been outside of the UK.
Do you remember any particular aspects of your upbringing, your childhood that kind of pointed towards this huge ambition towards colonizing and getting things into space?
I think one fairly significant aspect was I'm the youngest of 5 boys. I have an identical twin brother. And so I'm
Oh,
quite
wow.
competitive with my twin brother. So he's also founded a Y Combinator company.
Oh, are you serious? So you
Yeah,
compete with him on that as well?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he was doing energy tech. They've changed now, but they've pivoted. But yeah, they were doing energy tech.
Is that why you chose something that's like borderline impossible?
I think a quite impactful thing on that front for me was there's a essay written by Sam Altman called Hard Startups, which I think came out maybe like 5 years ago or something, where he's talking about the difference between doing a hard startup and an easy startup. In a hard startup, everything except for making the tech work is easier. Like getting investors is easier. Getting great technical talent to want to work to join you in the mission is easier. Getting reporters to want to write about you is easier. The main thing that's different is making the technology work. And I think if you're going to do any startup, you might as well go big or go home, as they say.
Well, in your earlier career, you had a lot of internships in investment like VC companies, in Goldman Sachs, I think, one of your earlier ones, McKinsey. Did you ever consider a standard kind of career path for yourself as a consultant, or did you have
Yeah,
this
I mean,
startup vision?
I would say I had a fairly standard career path. I spent 5 years on the engineering side as a quant trader at a bank, and then I spent 2 years at McKinsey, all of which is very standard, I'd say. I think I knew for a long time that I wanted to found a company, though, be a founder in general. So started with a different company, an e-commerce company. I'd say that's more of a traditional type startup, and then this one is obviously much more like a deep tech type situation.
Can you tell me a little bit about your first experience with the e-commerce?
Yeah.
How did you get into like, I want to start a company and this is what I'm going to be working on for the next like 3 years? How did you make that
That
decision?
one was quite opportunistic, to be honest. So there was this business model that was working extremely well in the US, which was called e-commerce aggregation, which is basically where you buy and grow e-commerce brands. So it was kind of a bit like a private equity roll up, but for e-commerce brands. And there was lots of small sellers who'd come up over the 5 years previously because of things like Amazon Marketplace and all of these large platform marketplaces. I mean, I just saw that it was working extremely well in the US and Europe, and nobody was doing it in the Middle East. And I thought there was a very short window of opportunity to make that work. And so, yeah, I left McKinsey basically to found an e-commerce aggregator in the Middle East, doing we called it at the time the Thrasio model in the Middle East. Yeah, I mean that was how that worked.
How was the journey? Like, was the start hard or was it easier than you expected?
I mean, it was a wild ride. We hired 100 people in the first year, which in hindsight was probably not a very smart thing to do.
Were you good at hiring?
Nobody's good at hiring, especially now, especially not new first time founders. I mean, if you're hiring 100 people in the first year, you're probably going to make some mistakes. So no, I mean, the reason was it was like a land grab. We were like trying to just buy as much as we could as quickly as possible, and we thought there was going to be others coming in, and there was others coming in. That's why that model grew so quickly. And then what happened essentially was interest rates went from 0 to 5%. So we were using debt, like venture debt leverage, to make acquisitions. And the idea is that the cash that the brands spin off, you can pay back the debt with. The only issue with that, and this is why Thrasio and all of the big US ones went bankrupt, is then interest rates went from 0 to 5% over in like a 6-month period after the invasion of Ukraine because of inflation and other things. And what that meant is even if you built a profitable business, we were EBITDA positive, but we were not. We still needed to refinance the debt because the debt had a time to come due. Um, we were expecting to refinance the debt at lower interest rates, and then as interest rates went through the roof, it then became very hard to refinance the debt, and then almost all of them then had to basically sell in order to pay back that debt, which is basically then what happened with us as well.
And how did you manage through that closure? Did you have to close down the company, or
No, we didn't
you
close
had
down
it
the
acquired,
company.
right?
We got acquired. Yeah. So yeah, I mean the entity still exists, and a Turkish competitor bought it basically.
And how
Um,
long after the acquisition that you've decided, like, I want another right? I want something new to
well,
work on.
so I was actually out about 6 months before the acquisition. So I give all credit to my co-founder at the time, a guy called Manfred, for riding that ship out, because I can imagine that was also not an easy period for him. I was actually, once we realized my main role in that business was acquisitions and fundraising and finance and things like that. Once we realized we were not going to be doing any more acquisitions because we were not going to be getting any more financing, essentially, then it came time for me to move on.
And with StarCloud, you've got into YC. How big was that of an event for you?
Honestly, it was huge. Like, I know you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say, we were like building as we were building, and if we got in or we didn't get in, it wouldn't make a difference. That is not
Let's be
true.
real here.
Yeah, it actually was. It did make an enormous difference in the trajectory of the business. It's just we got rejected twice before, so we got in on the third time. And yeah, I've built a company without YC, so I think I have a reasonably good perspective of what it looks like to build a company with YC and without YC. It is a lot easier to build a company with YC. I'll put it
Can you
that
tell
way.
me more details?
Yeah, I mean, you have obviously the batch, and that's quite useful. I mean, the best thing about the batch is obviously the other batch mates, and you're going through with a deep. For us, there was a group of like 8 in a small group of deep tech companies. So you're facing broadly similar challenges around, how are you going to survive all this heavy capex without revenue and things like that. So that's probably the most tangible benefit. Then in terms of the intangibles, I mean, it's just a very confidence boosting sort of signal, both to you and to the market, that what you're doing is, at the edge. And YC gets like 50,000 applicants a year, and they pick 100 or two. And what that shows to investors is, all right, you can believe what you want about the idea, but if there was any better team working on this or in something similar, that team would have got into YC instead of these guys. And so what it tells the market is that you have the most kick-ass engineering team in the world working on this, which is great.
And how do you keep your confidence levels up? Or were you always a confident person, like as a kid maybe, or growing up?
Confidence is often the wrong word. If you ask me if I think this business is going to have a successful end outcome, I would say it wouldn't surprise me if the objective odds are less than 50% of that. So being sort of delusionally confident, I think, is not the right frame of mind necessarily. I think what matters more is the willingness to take risks that others are not willing to take, with a expected probability that you think is very high. So if I had to give the outcome weighted probability of what we're doing, I would say that has a very high upside, as in, let's say there was a 10% chance of what we're doing working, but the upside, if it works, is 1,000x what we are taking from investors. That's a great thing for people to invest in. It's a great thing for me to spend my time on. But that doesn't mean that I think it's, but that still means that there's a reasonable chance that what you're doing is not going to work. And I think it's good to be realistic about that. You don't want to be completely deluded. Yeah, I think that's how I'd frame it.
If we still look at it, almost 95% of startups fail. And by fail, I mean not getting to like 10x level. So you might as well be doing something that is completely crazy, I guess, that has the highest outcome
You
potential.
want to do something that at the very beginning seems batshit crazy, but very quickly does not seem batshit crazy. Because if it carries on seeming batshit crazy for a long time, then that's also not good.
Did you have any early role models, like inspirations? Maybe Elon Musk with what he's doing in space,
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
South
definitely.
African background. Maybe you have a secret group over there. It's like space.
I mean, yeah, definitely Elon. My favorite autobiography is definitely Elon's autobiography. I think it's just the one by Walter
Yeah, I have it
Isaacson.
right over there on
Oh,
shelf
okay,
as
amazing.
well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's definitely my favorite autobiography, and he's definitely my biggest inspiration in all this. Even that framing of, like, when he started both Tesla and SpaceX, he thought there was a more than 90% chance of failure, but
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a reason not to start something.
And do you yourself in that? Would you be able to make those crazy bets when it's 90% of chance of failure multiple times and you just keep going, keep making those 90% bet?
I mean, it
Do you think
helps
with
if
like
you
10%?
make the bet and it works. I will die trying to make this work. So for
Is
Elon,
it really
it's
the perseverance?
yeah, I think so for sure. If you're going to do one of these crazy things, you have to be like in with every inch of your body, and yeah, this is definitely the case for me.
Do you ever get it, imposter syndrome? Like waking up and like, what the hell am I even doing with all this? I could have been doing so much more simpler stuff, all this like AI startups that are doing.
I mean, I guess I probably should more than I do because I also am not a space engineer. We have the two most kick-ass, my co-founders, chief engineer and CTO, are the two most kick-ass space engineers in the world. So I don't feel too stressed about it. But no, imposter syndrome. People, maybe I used to get it. I wouldn't say it's something I think about too much right now. Yeah. What I think about now is how the hell can we make this thing work? Let's actually just get our heads down and make this thing work. Imposter syndrome or not is irrelevant. Like I've accepted what the risks are. I think I know what the risks are, and if we fail, I'm not going to be like devastated. I mean, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Like, I'm not going to feel like I was the wrong person to try do it. I will beat myself up if we fail because we didn't try hard enough, for sure, but not for any other reason.
So would you say one of your biggest fears would be to have regrets? Like in one of your last days, you'll be like, I could have tried harder and it could have given like higher chances of all of your engagements to
Kind
crack.
of, except I just know that won't be the case. If this company fails, it will not be because we didn't try hard enough. That I can guarantee you. Every time I've done something where I've ended up being quite proud of it, I've gone into it with that frame of mind where I am thinking if this thing doesn't work out, and sometimes it doesn't work out, by the way, it will not be because I didn't try hard enough. Yeah.
You're going to be beating yourself if it doesn't work out? Or are you just going to be like, okay, let's work on something that is close to that vision, maybe in a different domain?
I don't spend too much time thinking about what's going to happen if it doesn't work out. I'm just trying to make it work.
I think that's what investors mostly want to hear.
I mean, it's true. I'm not saying it for investor purposes. That is literally true.
So for the people who don't know what StarCloud does, can you give a little bit of information in basic non-engineering kind of way?
Sure. We are building data centers in space. That is basic non-engineering speak. Yeah, we're building data centers in space initially to provide compute to other satellites, and then later in order to address the energy challenge that's coming down from AI. So in the end state, we're planning on building very large data centers, multi-gigawatt, 4 kilometers by 4 kilometers solar panels, and that will be the only thing that allows us to meet the coming demand for energy for compute for AI.
So that's 16 kilometers squared
Yes,
of solar panels up in space.
yes.
I just love how in your head it's like, yeah, that's just step by step. This is what we're gonna build. For anyone else to just even
We're
think
not going to
about that.
stop there, by the way. It's going to be a lot more than that. It's just that was what, when we decided what we were going to show in the concept video, we were like, let's do something that's like roughly 10 times the biggest data center on Earth right now, just to get people thinking. And so we went for a 5 gigawatt data center, but it could be, they probably won't all be located in the same place, but I expect there'll be much more than 5 gigawatts of compute in space in the end state.
Just to put that problem into perspective, currently we have AI being used more and more and taking a lot more energy and causing a lot more energy demand. And soon we might be faced with global warming consequences of that, because at the moment, in order to cool off all of the processing heat that's getting generated with water, and we might have to move into space
Yes.
in order to do that. And what do you think the energy demand for AI is going to look like over the next 5, 10, 20 years?
I mean, it looks like we're going to need to double the current in North America in particular. We'll need to double in the next 3 to 5 years, which is at least another 50 or 60 gigawatts. And then I would imagine we'll 4x in the 5 years after that, and we'll 16x or 8x in the 5 years after that. It seems like we're on an insane exponential now for demand for AI.
And how easy would that be to do terrestrially?
Not easy at all. I mean, 1 gigawatt is one nuclear power plant. Are you going to build 50 new nuclear power plants in North America in 3 years? No, we're certainly not. So what are you going to do? I mean, we are very, very rapidly running out of sources of this type of massive amounts of new energy.
What's the biggest stopper that you have at the moment from realizing your mission?
I mean, there's two big technical challenges that we're overcoming, and half the engineering team is working on one and half is on the other. The first is making the chips work in a high radiation environment. So we're launching the first satellite in either next month or the month after, just waiting on confirmation. That's going to have an H100 from Nvidia. It'll be about 100 times more powerful GPU compute than has been in space before. So the making that work in a high radiation environment is not trivial. And the second, and there's a bunch of both hardware and software to make that work. We're doing a lot of engineering on both. The second is, how do you dissipate all that heat in a vacuum? You basically need very large, low cost and low mass deployable radiators. And so the other half of the team is working on building these very large radiators. Those are two technical challenges. I would say if for us to be cost competitive with terrestrial data centers, we will need Starship launch costs. So we do need Starship to work for us to be cost competitive with terrestrial.
And what are the current costs?
Energy costs right now terrestrially, if you're building a new energy project, if you're looking at like gas turbines, which is what Stargate's using, for example, you're looking at like maybe 10 cents per kilowatt hour. You could get that for a new energy project down to maybe 5 cents per kilowatt hour. We're targeting 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour, including the launch cost, all in energy cost. So
What's the launch cost at the moment?
launch cost is $6,500 a kilo is what we're paying for our first launch, roughly the same for the second launch in October next year. For what we're doing by the way, we can run this business for a few years just offering compute to other satellites profitably using that launch price. That's the Falcon 9 launch price. The company is not in like grave peril danger if the launch cost doesn't come down for the next 10 years. We can just run like that and we'll build the expertise needed for the later business. For us to be able to compete with terrestrial data centers, we're looking at around a $400 a kilo launch price. The potential marginal launch cost with Starship is $10 a kilo. So that's where the potential launch cost is going. Maybe even less than that, maybe even $5 a kilo, depending on who you believe.
So while waiting for the launch cost to go down, you can pretty much be a sustainable business with the existing $6,000+ per kilogram.
Yep.
It's just the break even is gonna take a lot longer.
The break even to compete with terrestrial data centers, we can be a profitable business just serving other satellites initially.
And how often do you need to replace any parts for the equipment that you send into
Yeah.
space?
Yeah. The chips we're expecting to last around 4 years, and there'll be some, which is the same as a terrestrial data center, basically. We're expecting a certain failure rate, and you get that failure rate roughly in terrestrial data centers as well. It used to be that you'd get people with like dudes going around and unplugging chips and taking them to be repaired. Now they basically just leave them in there and just work around them without them working. That's roughly going to be the same thing. So for the first few years, we're not going to have access to the data center once it's launched. So we will we're going to be, in order to not have access and have the thing continue running, we need to have redundancy on the critical systems and then over provision things which you expect to degrade over time. For example, the solar panels and radiators, you're expecting a certain percentage failure per year. And so you just need to over provision so that you have enough for the life of the mission.
And with the radiators, do you have any other companies trying to cut the costs down, or is it something that you've tried to pull yourself?
Not that I know of. There's lots of companies who make space radiators, but they're extremely finely optimized for mass and for efficiency. We are optimizing for cost. So we are not optimizing particularly for mass or for efficiency, although they will be about 100 times lighter than the International Space Station radiators, but we are optimizing for manufacturability.
How do you as a CEO manage so many different like verticals that you have to think through on a daily
Well,
basis?
I mean, the team is actually very nicely split. You have those two engineering challenges. One is the radiator, one is the chips in radiation environment. Adi is expert in all things chips in radiation environment, so he manages that. Ezra is expert in deployable radiators and solar panels, so he manages that and the satellite bus. And then my role is commercial, which is talking to customers, fundraising, and then all of the boring stuff like HR and legal and finance and everything else.
What is the main USP or competitive advantage that you talk about when comparing, let's say, orbital compute to terrestrial one?
Well, in the end state, we'll have a much lower cost of energy. That's the main
But what
USP.
about until we get to that point?
Well, until we get to that point, we'll be serving other satellites. And so we're not competing with terrestrial compute. We are competing with basically nothing. Right now, these large satellite constellation operators essentially just throw away or only use the satellite for 1% of the time that they could because they know they can't get the data off the satellite. If they can ship all of that data to us using an optical connection in space, you can do optical in space, but you can't really do it to ground. It's a bit of a pain. We can then run all the inference workloads that we want on that, and then we just send down the insight. So if they're looking for wildfires, for example, we can they send us hundreds of gigabytes of raw imagery. We then run an inference workload on that to detect if there's a wildfire, and we just send down the location of that wildfire. So at the moment, what they do is they wait an hour till they get to a ground station, then they downlink as much as they can, which is usually like 1% of the total data they have. It's a nightmare. So yeah, we'll offer the USP is that we offer a service that is not possible.
How long do you think until you get the launch costs down? What is SpaceX telling you?
I mean, I can't be too specific about the conversation we have with SpaceX because we have NDAs, but I can tell you roughly what they've been saying in public, which is that they hope to fly their own payloads next year and the first commercial payloads either the year after that or in 2028. So they're expecting towards the end of next year to be deploying their own Starlink satellites with Starship, and then towards the end of 2027/early 2028 to be deploying customer payloads.
Until then, you want to make sure that you're ready with the radiators and solving the radiation in space.
Yeah, until then we're building a business that works with the Falcon 9 launch cost, but we'll be the first to be ready once Starship is ready to go.
Do you think space pirates are going to be a big issue for you in the future?
I think space pirates will be about as big an issue as like regular sea pirates are for commercial shipping right now.
So every once in a while.
Yeah, there'll be solution. There'll be solutions for it. What's the name of this podcast? Actually, it's not something to do with pirates, is it? No, that was the other one.
It's not fun. It's Founders Code.
Founders Code. That was it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Space Force is actively working on, and a few companies like Portal Space Systems, they're working on interceptor spacecraft. So yeah.
If you were to compare, like in a standard month, your good days to the bad days, when you wake up and you're like, today's a good day, or sometimes you just go like, everything's going to shit. It's like, what is your percentage?
Overwhelmingly more on the positive side. I'd probably say like 1 in 7. Yeah, like one bad day a week, man.
And do you do anything to keep yourself motivated, energetic, like gym, yoga, CrossFit? I don't know.
I just went to the gym for the first time yesterday, and the first time in about 3 months. I would like to do a lot more. I would like to go to the gym every day, but it's just impossible at the moment. But yeah, I'm going to be here for a while now, so yeah, hopefully I can get back into the gym.
Are you currently in a StarCloud main engineering base?
Yes, this is one of our facilities. So yeah, this is where we're going to assemble the deployable solar panels and radiators, and then through a wall behind here, there's a welding and fabrication shop, and then we have electrical engineering through like these walls here.
Incredible.
We're in Redmond in Washington.
To me, like talking to you almost feels like getting a prequel to Interstellar, is like what they were talking about before all of the things kicked off. When everything was just getting kind of set up.
Good.
And what do you think the world is going to look like in 50 years?
50 years. Within 10 years, I think almost all new data centers will be being built in space, if you're talking about it with relation to what we're doing. Within 20 to 30 years, I think that means the entire stock will be basically, or like 99% of compute will be being run in space. In 50 years, I hope we've started work on the Dyson sphere. Do you know what Dyson sphere is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we started work on a Dyson sphere by then.
Can you talk more about it? Because I can imagine there are a lot of people who will be listening to this who don't know about the Dyson sphere, the Kardashev scale, the trying to cultivate all possible energy from the planet and the solar system.
Yeah, a Dyson sphere, although actually it's much more likely to be a Dyson swarm, is where you surround a sun or a star by as much solar energy or solar panels as you can, basically. What I find more interesting actually is a matryoshka brain, which is where you then hook that energy up to as much compute as a star system will physically support. I mean, there's an argument to be made that the end state of all intelligent life or super intelligent life is to build matryoshka brains. My favorite bogus theory about this is that um, dark matter in our galaxy is actually stars that have become matryoshka brains and therefore are not
Oh,
emitting anything. It could be that 80% of the stars in our galaxy are already matryoshka brains.
that would
80%
be
of the
something.
mass in our 80% of the mass in our galaxy is dark matter, and it's unevenly distributed throughout the galaxy. It's
Because we can
basically
see that
where
they have
you can see
gravitational
it,
force
yeah,
roughly.
gravitational force, but there's no point of light coming from it or infrared or anything else. And that is exactly the signature you'd expect from a matryoshka brain.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you look too deeply into it, you realize there's a few flaws in that. Like the way it's spread out is a bit too, it's not pointy enough. But I still like the idea.
So you like to think that there are other conscious beings out there.
There must be. I mean, it's completely impossible that there isn't. They might not exist right now, but there's certainly in our galaxy they might not exist right now. Well, unless there's matryoshka brains. But my suspicion is there actually isn't in our galaxy matryoshka brains. Um, I would suspect because if there was, they would have colonized the galaxy. It would really not take very long to colonize the galaxy. Maybe, a few million years to colonize the galaxy. And we would see life everywhere if they'd done that. So my expectation is that um, we're not the first life in the galaxy, and we won't be the last. But it's probably the case that the Fermi paradox implies that superintelligent life at any rate is very short-lived, and that is quite worrying. But it's also true.
Is it
Do you know
something
the
that you have
Do you
to?
know the Fermi paradox?
No, tell me
The,
about
the,
it.
Fer- the Fermi paradox is roughly you could get to the nearest star in about 10,000 years with current propulsion technology. It really wouldn't take that long. 10,000 years is like the blink of an eye. Yeah. So as soon as you had superintelligence, it would literally be like a million or 2 years before you colonize the galaxy. And so you should see life everywhere. There's a trillion stars in the galaxy. Each star has 10 planets, so 10 trillion planets. The chance that life has not emerged on any of them in the 10 billion year history of the galaxy seems extremely unlikely. Either that or we are extremely rare, which also seems an unlikely place to begin the argument. So the most likely outcome I can think of is that as soon as superintelligence occurs, that is somehow self-destructive. So we might find many long dead one planet civilizations who got superintelligence and then very quickly splurged out.
Do you believe that AI is conscious?
I don't think it's conscious right now, but I think it will be much more conscious than humans are in the end state because it won't take them very long to figure out the building blocks of consciousness, and they will replicate it much better than we have it right now.
Because I like to think that we as humans, we have biological brains. We have all these wirings in the same way that we could say that the neural net has all these weights. It's like we get scared, something changes in our brains with chemistry. If an AI perceives to be scared, it changes the weights in its parameters.
Well, the thickness of the neuron is almost exactly representative of the weights of a model.
How long do you think, how much time do we have on this planet?
I think the most likely outcome is that within a maybe a couple of thousand years, maybe even less, maybe within a couple of hundred years, superintelligence destroys itself.
And how do you see that happening?
Well, like drone wars would be a pretty quick way to end humanity and then probably to end superintelligence.
How likely do you think that that will happen?
I think it's extremely likely because of the Fermi paradox, as in, if that wasn't the way, it might not be drone wars, but superintelligence leading to self-destruction looks like an almost certainty because of the fact we don't see life in our galaxy and because of how easy it would be for life to colonize our galaxy. So, like, you would send probes to every corner of the galaxy extremely quickly if you could.
And do you see yourself flying out, maybe when you get older, into the unknown?
I doubt I'd go to Mars. I probably would go to the moon for like a weekend trip. But Mars is probably the only place in our solar system we could go, and it's like a very unpleasant 6 month journey in a tin can. So
And what are the chances
maybe
that we are gonna make Mars habitable within the next 100 years?
in 100 years, 100%. I'm extremely confident and optimistic that will happen within 100 years.
But isn't going to be a safe space if the AI is going to be a problem on the planet Earth? What is stopping it from being a massive issue
Oh,
on Mars?
yeah, no, it will be a problem everywhere.
With all this in mind, do you plan to have children?
Yes, very much. I think it's the most important thing people can do in terms of this frame of mind.
Because I have a lot of friends who have been worried about having children because of the state of the world that they'll be having them enter into.
I think it's incredibly important to have children. I think it's like the most important thing anybody can do.
What would you teach your children as like a different to what children are being taught today?
I mean, it's going to be very important to know how to use these AI tools. Um, yeah, I'd say that's the most important thing.
Maybe there are a couple of words that you want to say to like any founders that are listening to kind of give them an inspiration. Maybe there is something that they can help doing to support your mission. Maybe there are verticals that they can target to help make your mission come true.
I think, yeah, in general, I think advice is this: read this essay by Sam Altman, Hard Startups. So super interesting. To support our mission, it's what we're doing is quite niche, so not too many people are going to be. I mean, if people want to create more launch companies, that's obviously a good thing for us. Same with the competitors to Starlink, but that's extremely expensive, both of them. So, yeah. Awesome.
Okay, thanks a lot for today.
Thank you.
Hope everything goes well. I'll keep up with the news and look forward to the announcements. You really are inspiration to anyone just who's trying to think big. And there you are. You can think even that big. Very
Appreciate
cool.
that. Yeah, I like the way you think about things as well. Like most interviewers don't ask interesting questions, but you actually do. So
I want to get deeper, but I can also
yeah.
understand that you're in the working environment. There are people there, and
Yeah.
it's not like you can just relax.
So, yeah, it'd be cool to do a proper one.
Yeah, I think we'll do the next one.
Yeah, let's do the next one, and we'll do like an hour and a half. And,
Okay, Phil.
sweet.
Thanks for tuning in. This was our conversation with Philip Johnston, an incredible founder who is not afraid of thinking big and is going to play an important role in the next 50 to 100 years of the development of our civilization, moving all of our data centers and computing power into space to make sure that we can keep our planet safe, cool, and more sustainable for the younger generations.